in the constellation of Pisces can't live in the Aquarian light. This is how things operate. Just like, you know, you can have nice snow and you can have your skis and polish them boys off, but as summertime comes, don't plan on going skiing. Now, you can put on little water sleds in your yard and slide them down there, run the hose through it, but you ain't going up and down no snow. And it's the reality, and by which we already know, the masses not knowing that those books are entirely Kabbalistic, you know, it has nothing to do, and this is where you get into what you call divine law, because when you deal with divine law, it doesn't recognize person or station. And also, you got to look at the fact that all of your priesthood are actually MAs, they're master astrologers. So they're already looking at the clock. Everything they do, they go by the clock too. They go by the math, by the compass and the square, what you call Jesus tools. That's one of their favorite things. Jesus was a carpenter, Jesus tools, you know. All right, so they pull out their tools, the compass and the square, and they take that ephemerides, and they take that wheel and turn it forward, and that's how you do projections, because the math don't lie. You know, so the math says, your heinies ain't gonna be in power. Now you can make some adjustments. Now, of course, people who have some knowledge, but they've been also used to privilege, aren't too fired up about losing their power. And so they're going to resist. This is the Civil War that the folks talked about, where they want to suppress what? Commercial mercenaries. So when you see policemen and different people enforcing contracts for the corporate operatives of the Roman Curia, they're commercial mercenaries. You see? And so he's telling them to stand down. That's why he expunds the licenses of the barristers. See, that's in reference to the coup set up in 61. See, there's a relationship, absolute relationship. See?
So I'd like to add to what you just said. By him pulling their licenses, also they were in fraud because they shouldn't be using titles of nobility.
Exactly.
So everything they've done while at those positions would be...
is nullity.
There we go. Treason.
Yeah. Now, all of them are nullities. And so you can see when he says, what? The foundation of this criminal act, this criminality took place 150 years ago. You know, so he's telling you. Now, of course, if you don't have this background, you know, you're just reading 150 years ago. So now you see what he's talking about. You know, but if you a scholar, and if you're so-called conscious, that's the advantage of so-called conscious people, because they have reference point restoration. Why do they have secret societies? Because there's a conscious exercise of what is called, quote-unquote, reference point restoration. That means one of the keys to Inquisition operations, this is why they burn books, or why they have what's called indexus expurgatorius and indexus prohibitorum. These are the rules of operations where they burn books or they hide information, and logically this is the foundation of your secret societies, where that knowledge is preserved for rulers, or what you call elite, i.e. styled as masonry, and it's all its multiple formats. You understand? So that's how the knowledge is preserved for rulers. That's why anybody in position of power must be a mason. Why? Because they must wear the crown of the sun, or the tiara, you know, which is called the crown of the sun, which its simple true name is called the Fez, founders of the eternal zodiac, Fez Morocco. Of course, they pin the tassel down, you know, because they can't travel. They travel, but they can't travel, if you get the point.
Right.
They're locked down.
They were created here.
Yeah.
They didn't come from here.
Yeah.
They don't have
And
no
so our tassel's not tied,
They're
so
not travelers.
you can roll it. Yeah. And of course, when you look at your fez, you'll see on the crown of your fez, your 4 sets of holes of 3. This is where you get your circle 7. 3 holes in each corner of the earth. You see what Drew Ali said, look, you must take this knowledge to the 4 corners of the world, to all nations. You understand? You got the center, 9 perforations. The second course, 12 perforations. Third course, 18 in 4 corners. And then with your finial, or your navel in the center, and the umbilical cord, then the ball of mud called Earth, then your degrees of the Earth dancing around the sun. And of course, in reflection, the moon dancing around the Earth. You know, and this is where your time, this is what your cycles. And when Joali says, we measure time by cycles. So you understand you're dealing with astrological charting. And this is where your ephemerides come in. And of course, you're dealing with what you call retrogrades, squares, trines, etc. And all your movements will be based on your knowledge of the function of the heavens. And this is where you get, like in the book of, in the beginning of the books, of the most holy books, when they talk about the three wise men following the stars. Of course, you got the Trinity, three, and the stars, because they're master astrologers. You know, because how things operate.
And on top of that, Fez, what you were just counting the perforations,
Yeah.
they count up to 36.
Oh, yes.
So
3,
each
6,
one,
9.
yeah, 9 is the 90-degree angle, the fourth part of a circle.
Yes.
Which is,
And of course,
360 degrees all the way around.
exactly. And then 9 squared of itself.
Yeah.
Then you also understand then the applied science of the number 9. This is demonstrated in the book of genetics, or what you call Genesis, where the angels on an angle, is dealing with Mary and Elizabeth, who were cousins, to prepare their sons for work they had to do through the Ankh, or through the womb, etc. So Yeshua and Johann, or Jesus and John, were prepared at birth for the mission that they had to do. Now, kid, all women are supposed to learn this in true religion. They don't teach it. This is the reason why the daughters of the American Revolution have been ruling, because they have been taking the Moorish science and ruling them with it. This is why so-called Asiatic women cannot be members of the Dar. And it's also why the Dar is the producers of the citizenship manual. You know, so once you understand these things and you understand the history, none of this stuff is a mystery anymore. And so-called scholars and leaders, girls and guys, can't BS the people anymore with emotional conversations about pseudo-spirituality when they're not really addressing what's really happening to the people. So anyway, so a most devastating blow was made against the established republic at North America. Now, against the liberties of the people and against the prescribed allodial character embodied within the Republican form of government, Article 4, at North America. And that said blow, which they have a ritual in Masonry they call a blow, that's the blow in the Grand Architect's head, you know, Hiram Abiff, involved in the colorful and criminal activities hatched among the apparently conspiring members of the Congress for the United States of America, manifesting in their unlawful passing of the Angelica style as the Act of 1871. This active and constructive fraud must be placed into its misprision context and measured against the fact that the formerly legitimate Congress for the United States Republic had adjourned sine die on the 10th day of 1861. The Congress's sine die action, by definition, by law, and by operative political fact, means without day, and constitutes a formal affirmation of both houses of the Congress for the United States of America officially and by process of the sine die action, affirming their abandonment of the legitimate constitutional offices formerly held by them for the United States Republic Congress, and with the said unseated members of that governing body having no intentions of reconvening their assembly. Such an sine die action lawfully constitutes a formal dissolution of the constitutionally formed government, though done with intentional misprision.
Can we park right there for a second, guys?
Yes.
Go back to blow. The said blow.
The said blow, all right, yes.
Now, those who know, the blow that was received, you talk about it when you talk about those 3 stars and the
Yes.
2 stripes.
And And that's it.
Now let's tie that back in, because what did he do to Hammer live? With 3 ruffians. Now those 3 ruffians come out of what? Vatican? What is the other 2? United States district? Washington, D.C., and also England, France and England.
Yes.
So
Jubila, jubilo, jubilum.
if you want to collect that for them.
Yes. And so, this is the distinction between the Constitution for the United States, which the Pope refers to as major, and the the Constitution of the United States of America, which the Pope refers to as minor in his address. And then when you see people who don't understand history are saying, how come Obama is always playing golf instead of doing president stuff? You understand that the Pope sat him down. Meaning his assignment was complete. Obama was assigned. He had a job to do. And his job was to kill what? The Federal Reserve note, to help in the transference. All right, so the Manchurian family, you understand what they've been doing is shipping, I think, something like 30,000, it might be 1,000, I apologize. 30,000 tons of gold from London for the last few years. Yes, on a consistent basis. So you see the transferring of the economic power of the old Manchurian gold being returned to the Asiatics, or what they would call from west to east. And so you've got to look at the real power struggle that's taking place, and this is where, so the agreements that was made with Kissinger and Nixon in 1971, notice that 61, 71, 71, which set up what they call the petrodollar system, by which the operations of the demon system through the U.S. democracy could control the treasuries of other nations. That's being dismantled. Now, they can't so much stop them from printing. And what they're doing, if you really understand this, they're removing the platform upon which these instruments trade, or how they operate. So it is not unlike, they're not battling the machinery on its face. They've dismantled the platforms upon which they operate. So what it means is that while the Europeans have used the Moorish Empire, i.e. the descendants or the true heirs, as that's what the bondage is. Bond to back the U.S. government debt after the Civil War. What is happening is that the nations of the earth have come together in meeting to dump the U.S. T-bonds, and so the bottomry instruments that have been created and put into bundles of bonds and derivatives and sold to the rest of the world is no longer being funded. And then to back that up, the Manchurian families have released over 6.5 million perfected assassins on the plane, even though the number is small. It's a large number, small based on the population, but you have over 20 million, what you would call white dragons, red and green, of the ancient Manchurian families. And so from the orders, now the Vatican got P2 Masons, and then Skull and Bones Illuminati and the different orders, Knights Templar, Knights Columbus, Knights of Malta. However, the Manchurian and African families, the ancients, outnumber them. And so the agreement is, you start dismantling this stuff and you have a lot of toys, it is understood. Still control a lot of the institution, that's understood. Take one, you lose 10, see who lasts the longest. And so this is where you see the negotiations coming in. And so you got to look at all of these things in relationship to the inspiration of Pope Francis to issue that impacting civil orders, which also on its face immediately crushes and dispels the misconception of church and state, because that's the title is civil orders, you know, and he's addressing all of the corporate entities who are members of the Roman Curia, and all of them are, you know, but as for us, and this is mainly for us, for those who claim to be conscious and those who are conscious, you're going to need this information because they're going to be coming after your estates, because they're trying to eliminate. They can't possibly satisfy the debt, but what it does, it buys them time. So, and this is where and why they, like we've been telling you all for the last, 5-7 years about House Joint Resolution 2847, so that you would have time to take your fiat out of the banks and have some control over it. If you haven't already done it, you don't have control over it, and it's not yours anyway now. So, those who listened, fine. Those who didn't, that's on them. But they don't have it, and it's not their account. Now, but what they're going to be doing, and what they are doing, is they're going to start liquidating people's, they're going to call mortgages, and of course, that people think that when they give the Federal Reserve notes that they're paying up. It doesn't matter. You can be so-called paid up, and they can still call a loan because you're not paid, because they know it's only being discharged and set off. But the corporate entities that were set up in 1871, this is called the Act of Congress, 1871. That's why it's important for you to know what that is. This is where they set themselves up as administrators over the trusts, the World Trust, which were Cetus Trust and Siskiyou V Trust. And of course, that's set up with the section of the Inquisition operations called the Siskiyou V Act of 1666. 1666. And this is why you have the Vatican flag on 18th Street in Philadelphia. 3 times 6 is 18. So it's flying at 18th Street on the Parkway. All that's strategic. And of course, this is also why that shield is used by George Washington, in the trade. And this is also why the estates is simply the estates that you think are territorial boundaries are actually private corporate jurisdictional agreements for controlling Moorish regencies. And you cut the E off, and this is where you get the states. But the states are really corporate entities set forth to regulate and administer the estates of the Moroccan Empire. And this is where the Pope is telling the people that the whole foundation of this criminal activity is based in 150 years ago with the commercial enslavement of African Americans. He's telling you the whole history. So the real creditor, when you're talking private and public, etc., you're simply talking about Moorish Americans who have been branded African Americans, who under the Spanish Inquisition and operations have been used to back the U.S. government foreign debt. And so this is why the Pope, lets you understand that Obama is a foreign dignitary representing the United States of America Corporation Company contractors, so that you don't have to no longer figure this out, and then you don't have to any longer get caught up in the gray area where your black leaders have been told to minimize what Noble Drawley did and try to make it seem like he made this stuff up. So now the Pope is backing it up. But of course, the Manchurian family is backing that up too. And then when you understand this, you understand why Obama made that speech that he made before the world delegates, and revealed one of the Masonic secrets in relationship to the origin of that Constitution, and tells you that it came from Muslim law. Of course, now you got to go into the treaty, don't you? You see the whole point? And then the ordinance. You see, and then as soon as they go into the treaty and the ordinance, they recognize that the treaty and the ordinance, when you're talking the Constitution, you're talking all three of them. You're not talking just that Constitution that was adopted in 88 and then finalized ratification with 89, and then George Washington being brought in because Ben Franklin went to England, you understand, to mitigate the issue with this operations that took place with that transfer of that gold. And this is in reference to 71, you know. So this is, that's why George Washington Benjamin Franklin wasn't present with the signing of the treaty, you know. So you got to look at the intrigue that was taking place during this period of time. And this is also why it's important for you to know that when you're talking about the operations of the so-called prejudice, race, stupid stuff that they're talking about today, which is absolutely a diversion, why the so-called black leaders won't talk about Horace Greeley and the Wigmore Party, because they're paid not to, because that would also make you recognize that the people they keep calling prejudice that run these different alphabet soup agencies are cottonwigs. You know, and so when you see these people keep trying to convert these commercial agreements with apostilles running all around the place thinking they're going to get a hold of this estate, it's cottonwigs who sealing their stuff. And they don't even, and this is why when they perfect those instruments, whether uniform commercial codes or financial statements, when they run around 2 or 3 years trying to perfect them, and then as soon as they try to start doing any big set-off, then they're blocked. And so you see the only real finance, well, you know, it's fiat, that is really converted, is to the people who are selling these packages. You know, and of course they sell the packages on the idea that they grasped this Cetus Trust that are controlled by the Jesuit order and the P2 Masons under Spanish Inquisition, and now they're controlling this estate under the Cusick number set forth by Skull and Bones member Delano Roosevelt in 1933 with House Joint Resolution 192. You know, and then they don't know the history behind this stuff, but they know these processes. You know, and this is why when Europeans perfect these processes, the magistrates tell them, you can't use that Constitution as a defense, you're not a party to it. Once you understand that statement, you understand what he's really saying. When the Europeans, through the Knights of Columbus Ku Klux Klan oath, took on the title white people under the Wigmore Party, they gave up their birthright too. See, so now you got all these Moors calling themselves black, which means Paleolithic man, that's what it means. And it means caveman. And then you got the Europeans calling themselves white, which means sovereign and ruler of the land. They've traded places, and all of us have gotten caught up in this corruption. And what it's causing now is that countries who bought into this bond system, they were riding high for a minute, and it's imploding. So they have to get rid of them. At the same time, they got to negotiate because they can't do it overnight because things will collapse. Meanwhile, they're under heat. Here, excuse me. Give it to them. Yeah. Go ahead.
Well, they've been committing fraud all along, and now the fraud is catching up with them. Because, I mean, like you called it the Este Quais Die was actually Seneca.
No, Sina D. That's what's called. Sina D.
Mm-hmm.
Sina D is when the Congress for the United States at Morocco, which is called Societas Republica e Almoricanos. That's the Moorish Society of America. All right? When the Congress adjourned Sina D, which we said before, that's a legal phrase which means without day. That is no different than, some of you remember most of these stores in this particular area, that are now some of the Home Depot stores, where some of those buildings were Two Guys, the old store called Two Guys. And some of them were channels. In the same way that they no longer exist is which means Their board of trustees adjourned sine die. That means the company was dissolved. It no longer exists. When the Congress adjourned sine die, the United States Corporation, or the United States as a nation state in legitimate operation at Morocco, disappeared. It no longer lawfully exists. Key, they maintained operations under a fraud to make it appear that they didn't do what they did. So this is what they did. They abandoned their posts, kept the power that the post implied, and instituted secretly the Spanish Inquisition policy of world conquest. This is what must be understood about the Sine Die Act, which scholars will not tell you. Masons know it. Skull and Bones members know it. Illuminati know it. 33, when you get in that area, 33 and up, degree Masons know it, not people below 18. Any real scholar knows this stuff. Any, doesn't matter where they are on the planet. The only people that don't know this information is people in the believer degrees, the bill payers. And it's only new to them because they're controlled by the John D. Rockefeller and Frederick T. Gates order set up in 1902 after they murdered Queen Winona in Philadelphia. And that's what is now known as the General Education Board. And so their concepts they're under mind control. But the point that must be understood in your mind, the Sine Die Act in 1861 was a coup d'etat. Lincoln could not run for president lawfully because he was a member of the Barristers Association of England, which is a violation of Moorish law. And so what they did is that they set up a platform, a company that was registered in France. And the company was named the United States of America Corporation Company. And he ran for president in that company and won. And when he realized the fraud, he tried to correct it. This is why he printed those greenbacks, because they actually undermined the republic. That was the beginning. That was part of the coup that is not talked about in history. So they murdered him. He was the last lawful president, but it was the first administration to wear two hats. Do you understand? Now, so that this part of the history is only taught in your highest degrees of masonry. But it's not given like we're giving it to you. It's given in allegorical stories.
Yeah. So what are those two hats?
The two hats is, just like you'll see, let me show you what two hats is. Let me give you an example. This is what you would call two hats. Of course, we know a fez is not a hat. It's a crown.
Yeah.
But let me just show you an example so that when we use these phrases, that you have an idea when we say two hats. Now, you know J. Edgar Hoover and Calvin Coolidge. Now, when Drew Ali told them to pull the flag back out of the vault, you know Calvin Coolidge was in office.
Yes.
Now, J. Edgar Hoover set up the COINTELPRO operations during that administration. That's where you have all these infiltrations of all these Asiatic organizations that's demonstrated in Executive Order 11490. You know what I mean? So, I mean, all scholars have this information, but anybody that's even a piece of a detective, there's enough information that even though they bury a lot of stuff, that you can't be fooled, unless you just foolish doo-doo. You know what I mean? So I'm going to show you what two hats will represent. Give you an example. See J. Edgar Hoover? Right?
Yeah.
Of course, nobody knows who the Moors are, right?
Yes.
But they got the fez, don't they?
Yes.
Yeah.
That's what you call two hats. Do you understand?
Yes.
Because everybody knows, why does everybody in positions of political power must have a fez because the land is Morocco. You understand?
Yeah.
The nobles who were overthrown, you see? Truman, there you go, Truman. And when the Pope's talking about 1945, he's talking about Truman. You see? There's Ford. J. Edgar Hoover. Now you understand the two hats? Huh?
Mm-hmm.
Who's that?
All these are important figures. Some of the names aren't listed. This is just giving you a synopsis of people. But I just want to make the point to you, because I don't, Dr. You could do some research and find out who that is. But all of these people, and just even like, you know, when people who they can't buy off, like Malcolm find these degrees out, you know, and they can't buy them off, they kill them. Because they become a threat to the order. You understand? Because it's how the world is run. You see? Martin Luther, what, he's 33-degree Mason. They just ain't showing him in his fez. There's Elijah Muhammad's brother. So basically, when we're saying two hats, that's what it means. That means there's a history for the masses and there's a history for the rulers. There's a knowledge for the masses, or knowledgelessness, which they call belief systems, dogmata, and the rulers have religion, which is cosmology. Do you understand? There's Elijah with his fez. And then you see a lot of brothers in the Nation of Islam try to say, man, I didn't have no fast. You know, that kind of, you know, but I mean, scholars know better than all this stuff. They're not, only people's fools is believers. Do you understand? And, you know, people got to get over themselves, grow up, put their childish sins away, and let's start fixing some things. Because our people are in trouble, the world's in trouble. You know, and the only way you're going to fix it is start telling the truth. And this is where you have a lot of the Europeans now whose power is being broken, via the middle class being dissolved, now they want the truth out. You know what I mean? And so this is where you get these operations. For 14th Amendment to the corporate constitution, only federal citizens can vote in federal elections. Registration as a voter is your consent to function as a federal citizen subject to the whims of Congress. That's the coup d'etat. And then, of course, that's the Vatican,
Yeah, the Vatican
District
flag.
of Columbia, Washington, D.C.
Is that the name of the flag, the Vatican flag?
Of course.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So now, is that also saying that anybody who's voting lend themselves over to this?
Yes, because under the Republic Constitution, you're not a voter, you're an elector.
So there should be no voting.
No, it's all deception. Excuse me.
But you don't want to get pulled back into something because you may have done something like vote, do you?
Well, you want to give up your rights when you do. It's part of the deception. People's vote don't count.
Yeah, I know that.
We found
But the
that.
electors put the votes in for the people, and they put their votes in the trash anyway.
Yeah. See, and it's just like this. So as an example here, right? After the Benghazi incident, right? You will see Hillary Clinton, you know, speaking from the Ben Franklin room with what the true American flags. See? I mean, which all know. They don't speak from the Ben Franklin room because he's a minister plenipotentiary with the signing of the treaty, you see? So what she was actually signaling, now see there's the American flag. Here's the American flag, here's the Star-Spangled Banner, which is the trading banner. Of course, that's the Almanacan flag. That's the American flag.
What is happening in
Now,
Yemen.
and this is one of the things that they're going to use against her when the election comes about Benghazi, because there was really gun running. See, so they got to cover all this stuff up because they're trying to maintain power. But the doo-doo's hitting the fan. You know, it's over. The problem that you have is the heirs of the estate insist on following their black leaders, which is going to get them killed. Because they're going to try to eliminate the heirs for the transfer. That's what King Alfred 84 is, Rex 84 is. Because the transfer must be made. You know, so I mean, from the and I'm not knocking it, it's just what it is. You know, the Europeans been used to having power, and you know, they look the last couple hundred years they've been living off our estate. And after a while, it ain't about morality, it's about somewhat, a little bit survival. And you know, just like our people have gotten used to having an inferiority complex, they've gotten used to exercising sovereign power that don't belong to them. So you got 50-50, they both wrong. It has to be fixed because the world is collapsing.
Yeah.
So they don't have a choice. Even though they don't have a choice on both sides, they're resistant. But truth does not wait for us. Truth does not wait for us. Excuse me, I'm having plans right now, I can't talk right now. It's gonna talk to me later. Truth doesn't wait for us, and the collapsing, see, because this is what must be recognized. The collapsing of the economies, the people, they're thinking, they've been thinking in their mind, no jobs, job, thing, and because they don't know that the U.S. corporation company hasn't had a treasury since 1921. Do you understand? They don't know that the Manchurian gold has been propping this thing up while we were supposed to be being taught government. Do you understand? This is why Drew Alice told you that your brothers from the East would come to your aid because the Europeans going to try to starve you out.
And they saying these Chinese come over here taking all our shit and shit.
You know, they're helping you. You know what I'm saying? Our people is out to lunch because they don't know that this whole thing's been propped up by Manchurian gold for the last 50 years. Everything they've been getting here has been free. And everybody waiting for us to wake up, and we're holding up the world. They can't wait no longer. Those who don't want to deal with this stuff, they're going to be eliminated. They're going to be, as a matter of fact, they're going to use vaporization techniques because they're not going to be going through trying to take these people out of the dead state. They want to be black, they will be black. No, we're talking the real politics.
So 9 million objects was produced.
That's exactly what objects.
And they said
That means they're outside the human family. They're out of the
they're
human
not going to have
family.
that problem.
Because they're going to use vaporization techniques. Now, also, the Manchurians are trying to stop that too. See, because this is where you have the Committee of 24 that was set up in 1960, where they were supposed to, what's called decolonization. That's what it's called. So look this up. Special Committee of 24 is roughly around 1960. This is where decolonization, particularly of occupied states, etc., with the major target being, logically, all things under the British operations, which you already know, the Vatican operations, you know, London, US, that flag that's at 18th Street. The so-called designation on paper of 10 square miles for the military operations of the enforcement of the Inquisition, 1861, 1871, etc., Act of Congress, 1871, misprision, which is the overthrow of the sovereign. That's what that really is. And so once you want to, you know, so when you're looking at the Congress adjourning, seeing the deal, You look at the beginning of the solidifying the plan for institutionalizing peonage and slavery at North America, targeting the heirs of the estate, the people of the land, the Moors, designated as African Americans to back U.S. government debt, which is the true history of the Civil War. And so all people that's been talking about, you know, debtor, creditor, private, public, etc., that's why they avoid telling you this real history, because they think they can just say, well, I'm the creditor, not the debtor, and I'm gonna get my hand on this Cusick number and this bottom, this pit account, and they're selling packages all over the place. As soon as they perfect them, the magistrates tell them, you can't use that Constitution as a defense, because it's called enforcing the common law. Because this is the thing that people don't teach people when they're selling packages. Constitutions and treaties are identical in operation to private family wills. They're just on a national scale. Therefore, the descendants who are the real beneficiaries must be identified. There's no such thing as you just saying I'm the creditor and not the debtor. And I perfected the UCCs and therefore I'm getting a hold of this Cusick number. This is why, when you understand these operations, you understand why Zuckerberg's partner, when Facebook went IPO, 3 days before they went IPO, that he went to Switzerland and nationalized. Because IRS, Inquisition Revenue Services, took all his cash. Once you understand this, you'll see, you know how they say, you know it's better, it's not money, but they say follow the money. If you look at Europeans wealthy, they do not go follow no UCCs. They go and nationalize, but they can't call themselves white people no more. You understand? Because that whole setup was made to steal the birthright. But I'm only saying this because all scholars know this stuff. And the interesting thing, you have so many people that are followers and so many organizations putting out a whole bunch of finance to these leader girls and leader guys, and they fail to tell them the foundation of what their problem is. You know, they keep talking about racism and prejudice and all this, and this is the root of their problem. Now, scholars know this. This is the point. Scholars know this. Masons know this. That's why they got fences. But logically, you know, it's not unlike the difficulty under pressure when you have to tell your child that Santa Claus really didn't send them that bike. And the letter that he sent this year ain't gonna be answered because you broke. You know, type thing. And the child going, oh, I wrote Santa Claus 5 letters. And what I think we want to do is sue Santa Claus because the white boy got a bike and I didn't get the, you know, and this the same way telling our people their real history. Even at the land is Morocco. You know, they just, it's like they can't, you know, they've been trained like rats. You know, so they got the minds of minors, boys and girls. They don't even know that that's why they call it minority. They think minority means Afrocentricity. It means, regardless of age, mental state. Now, here we go. Now, you'll see where Obama goes into the treaty. He'll mention it, but he'll go into the middle of it.
With Islam, the places life goes up. It carried the light of learning through so many centuries, paving the way for Europe's Renaissance and Enlightenment. It was innovation in Muslim communities. It was innovation in Muslim communities that developed the order of algebra, our magnetic compass and tools of navigation, our mastery of pens and printing, our understanding of how disease spreads and how it can be healed. Islamic culture has given us majestic arches and soaring spires, timeless poetry and cherished music, endless poetry and places of peaceful contemplation. Throughout history, Islam has demonstrated through words and deeds the possibilities of religious tolerance, first nation to recognize my country was Morocco. In signing the Treaty of Tripoli in 1796, our second president, John Adams, wrote, "The United States has in itself no character of enmity against the laws, religion, or tranquility of Muslims." Since our founding, American Muslims have enriched the United States. They have fought in our wars, they have served in our government, they have stood for civil rights, they have started businesses, they have taught in our universities, they've excelled in our sports arenas, they've won Nobel Prizes, built our tallest building, and lit the Olympic torch. When the first Muslim American was recently elected to Congress, he took the oath to defend our Constitution using the same Holy Quran that one of our founding fathers, Thomas Jefferson, kept in his personal library. So I have known Islam on 3 continents before coming to the region where it was first revealed. That experience guides my conviction that partnership between America and Islam must be based on what Islam is, not what it isn't. I consider it part of my responsibility as President of the United States to fight against negative stereotypes of Islam wherever they appear.
Now, that's his commitment, you're correct. Now, let's go to, now, as an example, here's what all Masons know and all scholars know. Of course, what you all know, John Hanson was the first president for the Republic. Then it was Richard Henry Lee, Elias Boudinot, Thomas Mifflin, John Hancock, Nathaniel Gorham, Arthur St. Clair, and under the St. Clair administration, that's where the treaty was formulated. And then Cyrus Griffin, then George Washington. And it was under George Washington that the estates were converted to the states. And then logically, all this history is only taught in Masonic orders. And so in the schools under Skull and Bones operations of Franklin Delano Roosevelt, the children are taught, and adults too, that George Washington was the first president. All scholars know he was the 9th, you know. But anyway, so let's go to some points that Obama was making, so that we can have a better view. Now here's George Washington with his Masonic garb. And as you can see, when he writes this letter to the Emperor and the Sultan, he talks about the late Congress and their president, which in his first sentence makes you know that he wasn't the first president. I mean, scholars know this, but I'm just making these points to contradict, you know, people who try to dismiss this information. And you can understand why they would, because all of their little Negro organizations will be exposed as COINTELPRO operations. And then let's just go to, like as an example, to the closeout of his letter to the Sultan, and understand what Obama was talking about, and then we can go into the preamble and also understand what Obama was talking about. Just in these last paragraphs. The encouragement with which your majesty has been pleased generously to give to our commerce with your dominions, so now you understand the dominions, these are Moorish dominions. They're doing commerce in the Moorish dominions. The punctuality with which you have caused a treaty with us to be observed. And of course, that's the treaty that the Pope is talking about in his current letter. And the just and generous measures taken in the case of Captain Proctor make a deep impression on the United States and confirm their respect for and attachment to your Imperial Majesty. So you see, the United States is an appendage of the Moorish Empire. See, so people, except in Masonic orders, have no idea of this history. And so there's a total mental disconnect. And of course, when people like Malcolm find this stuff out, like that French Muslim schooled him, told him, you know, you Muslims come over with that black and white stuff. You think that Maghrib is Wednesday Salat, Wednesday prayer. Say Maghrib is North America, Morocco, the most extreme West. And of course, that's a rude awakening. That's a rude awakening, and logically, it's quite uncomfortable. And you start recognizing all these people you think is honorable, got other degrees, and they got you out there doing black stuff. You know, you out there got your neck on the line, and the rest of the world looking at you like you out to lunch. And this is also back where people make the mistake of thinking that just because they claim Islam or Judaism that they're actually going back to their culture without their status being corrected. But anyway, let's look here who's a minister's plenipotentiary with the formation of that treaty. And keep in mind it's 1786, 1787, and keep in mind George Washington wasn't assigned because he was appointed. 1789. So look who are these personalities here. To all persons to whom these presents shall come or be made known, whereas the United States of America in Congress assembled by their commission bearing the date 12th day of May 1784. So we're talking about 84. You understand, 2 years even before the signing of the treaty. Thought proper to constitute John Adams, Benjamin Franklin, and Thomas Jefferson, their ministers plenipotentiary. See where you get potentate and masonry from? Giving them, a majority of them, full powers to confer, treat, and negotiate with the ambassador, minister, or commissioner of His Majesty, the Emperor of Morocco, concerning a treaty of amity and commerce, and to make and receive propositions for such treaty, and to conclude and sign the same, transmitting to the United States in Congress assembled for their full ratification. And you know, and we know that this history is not given in the schools. This is the whole foundation of this operations of country here, Morocco. And then you see all these so-called black leaders and Europeans, logically, because it's not in their interest, pretend they don't know that these people are Moors. Why? Because this is their estate, and they've been enslaved. And that's what the Pope is talking about when he talks about African Americans were used to back U.S. government debt after the wake of the Civil War. There's your history. And of course, the great Masonic secret. But let's go to Article 11 that Obama mentioned in his speech, and to show you it'll be quite revealing. And then he talked about the Treaty of Tripoli, right? Which is in that series because it's the Moorish Empire, because an empire is a series of kingdoms and provinces. You know, it's a collage. All right, so let's now here's treaty, right? This is what Obama made reference to. Treaty of Peace and Friendship, signed at Tripoli on day 4 of November 1796. Now, it's going to become obvious why, when he speaks of it, he goes into the center of the treaty. Because he already knows that whenever he speaks, there's going to be controversy. You know, because many of the Europeans, you know, didn't want him to be president because they know he has a nationality and he ain't black and he's not going to play the game. Do you understand? But it also symbolizes the end of their operations at Morocco. So they would use every means they can to discredit him. So he goes to Article 11. So let's look why he goes to Article 11, and also why is it that he goes into the middle of it and talks about what Jefferson, he give you note, has a Quran. Now you understand why he has a Quran. Why the so-called founding fathers have Qurans. All right, so he goes here what? As the government of the United States of America is not in any sense founded on the Christian religion, as it has in itself no character of enmity against the laws, religion, or tranquility of Muslim men, and as the said states never have entered into any war, act, or hostility against the Mohammedan nation, it is declared by the parties hold on. Now you see why he didn't read the first part? Because what is taught these people in school? That this is a Judeo-Christian country. Now you understand the symbol, the signal that the daughter of American Revolution was given Hillary Clinton with the true American flag in the back?
You got the true meaning of Muslim with Muslim.
No, that's Muslim. You got to understand where Muslim come from.
That's what I'm saying.
Yes. Now, and so you know, I know, we know, scholars know that it ain't got a daggone thing to do with belief. Now, that no pretext arising from religious opinion shall ever produce an interruption of the harmony existing between the two countries. Now you see the preamble, and you understand George Washington's position. You understand why they all must be Masons. Right? What are Masons? Mason is how do you say, an organized way to study Moorish science without saying it publicly. That's it. Simple, cut and dry. You know, and then of course, why? Because they're the noble who was overthrown, symbolized in the ritual called High Ram of Bith. You know, so once you understand this stuff, none of this stuff is confusing whatsoever. But the other deal is, when the idea that the leader guys don't know this information, that's just royal BS, extreme royal BS. You know, but again, when somebody doesn't have a background, you can fool them, you can play with them because they don't have reference points. You know, but once a person has been into any secret society, or they've had any studies whatsoever, serious scholarship whatsoever, you know, they're not fooled. You know, but again, they'll find themselves up against a wall trying to talk to people who don't have a background. You know, because you look like you're out to lunch, or like you're anti-God and all these kind of things. No, really, and people say that too. You got a devil. You know, they don't even know Illuminati is the activation of the pineal gland. You know, they think it's lights off for them. You know, we're just taking your knowledge and going to the dark side, that's all. But that's your stuff. But anyway, so when we're looking at the Congress Act, you know, adjourning sine die, unlike others, you're not supposed to be spooked up or naive. You know it's a coup d'etat. And so you must look at this and understand, not on opinion, but on fact. This is the foundation of all contemporary political operations in the Western Hemisphere, or what they refer to Western countries. It is what? An overthrow. So as you can see, even when you're given some of the reference points back in Masonry, if you have any intelligence, you can put the puzzle together yourself. But at the same time, if you do and start speaking publicly, they will eliminate you. And the reason they do, you know, to cut the throat, cut out your tongue, throw you in the water, all that kind of stuff, and all the different death rituals, is because, as you understand, if this information is released to the public, you have revolution overnight, including half your reverends will be hanging from poles. You understand what I'm saying to you? And then, of course, you know, that's kind of like total chaos, you know, like they can't have that. I mean, you know, and then, of course, they discover what the Pope was really telling you. There ain't no separation of church and state, and that was. Now get over yourself. You know what I mean? And this is what's up. And so when you look at the Pope's letter, you understand that it's apex time. That means they've hit an apex. Now whether or not the masses are awake to that, you know, they're not going to sit around and play with these people. You know, because they're being eliminated. You know, so, and you know, and those who know, understand how things operate, that the banks are bench. Bank is the bench. Their collection bench for Thomas D. What's his last name? What's it Thomas' last name? Huh? Yeah. Yes, that's what the IRS actually is. The IRS is really the Inquisition Revenue Services to enforce the Inquisition. And of course, this is what Skull and Bones, what's his name, Woodrow Wilson, that's why he met with representatives of the Bishopric Order and P2 Masons off Jekyll Island, Georgia. And that's when they set up the Federal Reserve System for the Jesuit Order and for the P2 Masons. And of course, that has been the regulatory arm, you understand, administrative arm, and bookkeepers for the military operations that were managed from the 7 hills that Pope Mason gave to them to build the coup d'etat center, which is called District of Columbia. You know, Columbia is Roman queen or Roman ruler. You know, so again, the point that I'm saying is, when you're given these reference points, the rest of the stuff you can put together yourself. It's not really hard. You know, it's just that if you're absent of it, you can get fooled by things that you see in the politics. You start getting emotional about why they do this and why they didn't give us peanut butter sandwiches on Thursday and all this kind of stuff. You're not fooled about anything they do. As a matter of fact, you can just go to a chart with Ephemeris. Once you learn true religion and actually do charts, you can do what's called geographical charts. That's earth charts, and deal with geography. Then you can do it on persons, personalities, territories where certain nation states are located according to the meridian lines, you know, the longitude, etc. And pretty much project, and then that's where you get your compass, and that's how you guide your life. You know, because that's true religion. And the masses get dogma, you know, or solar systems. And all true scholars are MAs. All of them are. They're master astrologers. That, you know, just like when you see the button, like the button you got, and you got on there MA, in your base degree, that's Moorish American. In your added degree, that's what? Master astrologer and master alchemist. It's according to the degree that you want. You understand what I'm saying to you? And all these guys are MAs. You know, but the deal with it is, once you understand these things, the mystery leaves. And then people can't fool you anymore. You know. So, again, so the Act of Congress 1871 is the construction, or what you call the organization and construction of the political platform for the dark priesthood to operate off of. You see, so even when you have dark operations, what you call, you know, dark side operations, you need stability. That is known as the U.S. democracy. And so let's go to the Pope's letter, and then you can see your history in his letter. Now these things we go over all the time, but the reason I'm doing this is because you're going to need this information, and you need it really now, but you're definitely going to need it in the next couple weeks. The stuff they're getting ready to pull on you. You know, so you don't get lazy and stop thinking. Now, let's look at this. The introductory. Now, consider some things we read in the treaty book, and consider some of the things that you already know, and those of you familiar with the recent issue of the Pope's letter. Now, see, because the original de jure Constitution and government for the United States of America at North America. Now, there's a separation between the corporate entity and the land. So the corporate entity is a legal construct on paper. It is really an abstract of body politic. It is an abstract of thought and agreement of operations. Does not otherwise exist. Do you understand? But it operates at North America, which is the organic land. Essentially Morocco, the heart of the Moroccan Empire. Having a republican form of government set forth and established at Article 4, Section 4, stands as the supreme law of the land. That organic constitution was altered by acts of misprision and was secretly overthrown and converted into a foreign profit-owned, privately owned and deemed for-profit corporation in the year 1871. See the Act of Congress, 1871. That seditious prison derived and foreign feudal law entity, born of treason, was styled as the United States Corporation Company. So see, people don't know history. As soon as you say that, their mind goes to the sovereign order that was set up originally between Moors and Muslims to stop the hundreds of years wars between the Moors and the Muslims. That's what the United States originally is. That's why in its nature or character, it's a beacon light or an example for other nation structures. That's why other nations always use the American Constitution as a pattern, because they were all simply derivatives of the breakup of the Moorish Empire. You know, and this is why you see, when you look at the Secret Treaty of Verona, registered in the congressional record or in American documents, you will see the date 1884. And then when you go to that date 1884, you see the Berlin Conference, 1884-1885, with the dissolution of the empire amongst what they call Christian nations, when you know it's really Constantine and his mom, you know, the whole operations of conquest. But anyway, let's get past this part, because most of you are familiar with this entry. But I want to get to the post letter, the heart, and there's Obama with Francis. And of course, immediately with the civil orders right here, which is what the post issue is that's its title. So immediately, even with that, it eliminates the separation of church and state mystery system, because there's no such thing. You know, so as soon as he's telling you right now, right there with civil orders, it is totally out of the cognitive capacity of most people who think they know religion, you know, or what you call believer degrees. So this was issued to all members of the domestic police forces. So that means cops all know this stuff. U.S. Marshal Service, the Provost Marshal, members of the American Bar Association, and the armed services. Now he's talking about these organic American states. You already know he's talking about what? The operations under the legitimate Constitution. Right. That's why he's saying organic. Of the union known as the United States of America, major. That's why he's emphasizing that, because you're talking about the legitimate. And then exercising plenary civil power upon the land. Hereby, of course, he's making an appointment of Carter F. Ham to lead command of the Grand Army of the Republic. So they're going back to the Republic, which is the major, which is the original union known as the United States. You see? And its successors under guidance of the Joint Chiefs of Staff. So now he's pulling all the branches of the military services under this operation. Now see where he says, should it become necessary to suppress commercial mercenary forces? That means all these corporate forces that have been forcing these contracts on the people, he's going after them. Because they're all members of the Roman Curia. So that means he's having what you call backlash. That means amongst the made men who run all these corporations, who are Skull and Bones, Illuminati, Knights Templar, Knights of Malta, Eastern Stars, Daughters of the American Revolution, Caicos, Union Guard, White Camellia, all the multiple levels of masonry that's been running this thing. You've got people that got used to the game, and they're resisting. And the Pope is sitting them down. Do you understand? So this is where you've got this underlying, and some of us hit under the military operations known as Jade Helm 15. You know, but then you've got to look at it as a double-edged sword too. You know what I mean? Because still at the same time, they don't want to be out of power, but they're also in the problem that they don't have a choice. You know, they're losing, but they're still going to battle it out. Meanwhile, the heirs of the estate is busy still trying to be black, being misled by their black leader guys who are actually Skull and Bones payoff overseers. You see? And this is why, and some of the children, spiritually, are starting to wake up even though they lack some of this information. That's why when Jesse and them come around, they start running them out of town now. Because they know that they're COINTELPRO operators, even if they don't, their spirit is telling them that. Because they're watching patterns, and they're not locked in the naivety of, oh, this is the mosque, or this is the church, or they ain't hearing it. They don't have reference points, but their spirit is telling them this is BS, royal BS, and they ain't going for it. So when Jesse and them show up now, the youth is running them out. But everybody else, all scholars know that they're overseers. You know what I mean? And 32-degree Masons too, 33 most of them. Anyway, well let's go down to the bottom. Let's go to 2 points, and then let's open up to discussion. Let's see here. See, the Grand Army Republic shall continue to operate under General Order 100, known as the Libra Code. The extent from the pen of the last Republic President, Abraham Lincoln. See how much history he's exposing?
Can you talk about that legal code or something?
Yeah. We'll pull that up later. No orders, executive or otherwise, issued by Barack H. Obama pretending authority on the land. See, he's making this separation. See, of the American states, while operating as quote-unquote President of the United States Corporation, nor as President of the United States of America, minor. See, he's telling you the distinction. Now, if you don't have reference points, or if you don't know history, most people, that would go over their heads. Even though they're being told the history, it will still go over their heads because they can't read. And they don't have reference points. But all scholars and Masons know this stuff anyway. This is why, meaning that's where their knowledge base is. That's where their power. Their power is the knowledge. And this is also the power that other people have who come here from other jurisdictions because they already know the true history. So they're not spooked. And logically, they're not subject to the Negro Acts and the Negro Codes. And this is why, you know, it confuses our people when they come in our community and they get buildings that were sitting empty for years, and they get it, and there's no tax base. And then within a year, they sell these people some else's hair and some soap powder and toilet tissue. And they can't understand how this is done. It's done because they're nationals. They don't know that they're property. They think that they're spiritual because they're saying Allah and Jesus and Muhammad and stuff. And they're really, they're stock. And their arrogance denies them the capacity to face reality, that they're tools. But, you know, their arrogance also ensures their enslavement. But anyway, let's go to the end. Let's go to the end. This is what I want to talk about. And we went over this before, but I want to go over this again to show you the relationship, but also to imply these two paragraphs here. All those estates, small case, and estates uppercase. So you can see these talking about the ens legis operations with the field marshal's operation of the 14th Amendment to transfer the estate of the Moroccan Empire into the United States Corporation Company, registered in France, pretending to be the legitimate government here, which you already know what that is. Erroneously believed to represent the American states and American state citizens, and which were conveyed by fraud and legal deceit to the United States of America Minor, and more recently to the city-state of the United Nations, are revenued without exception to the geographically defined American states and the American state citizens, where they shall remain in perpetuity as assets belonging to the rightful and lawful beneficiaries. So you're talking about the world's largest trust. Now you understand why Hillary spoke from the Ben Franklin room, with the true American flags behind her, the signals, because she's a dog. You know, so I mean, but the point that I'm making is that these are reference points being restored. And so the Pope is topping it off because he's the Don of all the corporate entities on the planet, you know, of the Roman Curia. Because apparently it's been 102 years, and pretty much the Negro overseers have pretty much diverted the people's attention from what Noble Raleigh did, trying to minimize him or trying to discredit him, or stealing some of the stuff and trying to take credit for stuff that they didn't really do. But they're diverting the people from it when it's the restoration of their estate, which should be what their conversation should be. But these are ways of what you call diverting the people's attention off the focus. And logically, the operators of the Roman Curia have been accelerating their rapery of the people, and the Pope is coming on board and saying, all right, y'all gotta stop it. Cease and desist. And then, as you already understand, he extinguished all of the licenses of the Bar Association, British and at North America. But let's look at this again. which you all know. We note that the current circumstance, that's this thing that everybody's dealing with now. Everybody's trying to get a hold of this Cusick number, this bottomless pit account, trying to be the creditor, not the debtor, doing set-offs, discharges, all these things according to, United States law 95 subsection A, where the debt is supposed to be actually, it's on the United States corporation company, they've been converting it on the people. This has to do with the coup d'etat, this whole platform of fraud. So we note that the current circumstance is in part the result of criminal acts engaged in 150 years ago, which resulted in the commercial enslavement of African Americans who were summarily claimed as chattels back in U.S. government debt in the wake of the Civil War. And despite every act of abolition and declaration of prohibition against both peonage and slavery, it has been the policy of the United States government to enslave its citizens and to operate as a rogue state among the nations of the world. Instead of freeing African Americans, the sum total result of the Civil War was to vastly expand public sector ownership of slaves, giving rise to the outrageous and improper claims that have been made against the American states and the American state citizens that we are dealing with today. It is uniquely fitting that the Grand Army of the Republic is recalled to settle this circumstance in favor of the people. Attachments, civil orders, Anna Maria Wilhelmina, Hanna Sophia Ritzinger, von Ritzenstein, von Letlow, Verbeck, private attorney in service to His Holiness, Pope Francis, documents related. The United States isn't a country, it's a corporation, the hidden Vatican Crown Empire. So it has to come from the Pope because they don't believe duality.